Hi guys, welcome to Charity's Bubble USA, your number one channel. I'm on a dirt road. My car is shaking. I'm on a dirt road. Let me see. I'm on a dirt road. I'm coming from my friend's house. It's a dirt road. You know, it's good to see that we have different kinds of roads. It's not only like the nice. No, we have some other kind of roads. And it's still very dry, guys. Very dry. And cold also. So today I want to digress a little bit and talk about a different thing. I want to talk about polygamy. Polygamy is the in thing right now. It's trending in Kenya. You know, since they passed that law that you can marry as many wives as you can, people have been on it. And I do remember, because I like to follow up what's going on. There was this time that someone who was kind of prominent passed away, and they had 2 wives. And they had a show, you know, like a nice show of how it works and how they were together, how those two women loved each other. And you could see like they took the internet by storm. And then from there, later is when I started seeing like people are talking about polygamy and all that stuff, and they are posting themselves online, which is okay. You know, you have the freedom of expression. That's good. But let us look at before and right now, because social media is like a cake that has been coated with sugar. So when you eat that cake, you don't know if it's gonna bring you some problem with your teeth. You do not know that, but the cake looks good. So that's what we see in social media, but you do not know what happens behind the curtains. And I want to go back to a family that I knew, and those were old people. Like they I would say like they were old people, like really old people. And so that person had 2 wives, and so the first wife had been married for a long time, and then he married another younger girl who, she wasn't very young, but she was young compared to that other lady. But then I could see that there was always like that conflict, whereby the younger wife decided like to grab. It's like grabbing the husband and just having her for herself. Like she didn't want to share. Of which she had found this other lady there, and this lady had lived for so many years. She had had so many kids, but you could see that there was that enmity even between the kids. And there was always conflict. The guy was really good, but he wasn't able to get it together. You know what I mean by getting it together is that you have your stuff. Yes, I have these 2 wives, but this is what goes. You know, this is what I'm gonna do with my property. This is how I expect the children to behave. This is how I expect my children to treat each other. But I could see at that moment, and it was a while ago, that that conflict was there. It was very hidden, but you could tell it was there. And then now I looked at that one that, you know, they took social media by storm, and then I was like, oh, looks like things have changed. But as a woman, and you know, I've been married for a longer time now, when I look at marriage, I know people are different, and people are born differently, but I think there's an element of women that doesn't change at all. And this, you can even trace it from the Bible. When you look at the Bible and you read about the story of Abraham. Abraham had stayed with Sarah for a long time. They didn't have kids. It was Sarah, not Abraham, who told Abraham to take one of her maids so that they could have a child. And Abraham did what the wife had told him, because Sarah wanted a child. So she had an interest. You know what I mean? And then later in the story, if you read the Bible, when the angels came to visit, and Abraham gave them a meal, and Sarah got pregnant and she had her own child. And then when I looked, I tried to think about it when I read the Bible and see like maybe Ishmael was the son for the maid, and was it Isaac? Yeah, Isaac must have been like maybe 4 years old or 3 years old, and Sarah watched those kids play outside. She became jealous, and her herself, who had told her husband to take another woman, told her it's time for these people to go. So it was Sarah. It wasn't, there is no place where it says that Abraham was the one who told that woman to go. Nothing. It was Sarah. So that was in the Bible. Now, looking at it in that way, what does that tell us? It tells us that women are the same. One woman can feel like they feel bad because this has happened. The man has decided to take another wife. And I'm lucky that I live in the US, guys, because here in the US, you want to marry another wife, you divorce the one that you have and then you marry another one. You cannot be in a marriage with 2 wives. There are some states that allow that, but here, no. Especially when you look at how this place is structured, it's a little bit complex, I would say that. So you look at these women, they're married, so that went good, and the social media was everything was trending about this polygamous marriage, how it was good. I even remember at one point even the president was congratulating them. I was like, oh whoa, this is really good. But then when you look at what's happening later, what happened later after that? What happened is that you can hear and you can look, because people are just used to share everything in social media. Whatever is happening in your bedroom, you want to share it in social media. So you can see that there is wrangles in the same people who are trending because they were having a good polygamous marriage. And I don't have a problem with that. I'm just sharing my opinion, of which I like to share my opinion. And we've seen others whereby you are parading yourselves in the social media, which is okay. If you're happy, that's good. If that's what makes you happy and you feel comfortable, that's okay. But the man, because the man is the one who initiates, maybe the man is the one who initiates, because I've listened to some of them and they're like, the man had to go and introduce the second wife to the first wife initially. Then the first wife did not know that story. It's not, we can't say that it's like the story of Sarah and Abraham, where Sarah told Abraham to go and get the house maid, one of her maids, so that they could have a baby. No, this is different, because when you listen, there's that instance whereby the new wife was introduced to the old wife, and so the incoming bride was introduced to the bride that was there before by the husband. So that means that these relationships are happening when the first wife doesn't know, which I don't have a problem about it. But as a man, what are you doing to get it together? What are you doing to make sure that if you are not there, in my language, there's a proverb that says, like you can go, it's not a must that you die, but you can go for a vacation, or you go travel somewhere. Have you ever sat and thought about, if I traveled somewhere, what would happen to these 2 women and their children? Because you listen and you look and you see that after all that parading and all that, it was all like a show. And then later, people are fighting over property. People are fighting over things that maybe that problem would have been prevented if the man had gotten it together and said, this is for this woman, this is for this woman, this is how I would want you guys to be if in my absence. You see what I mean? So I do remember, even when I was growing up, there were these people who were very wealthy, like very, very, very wealthy, and they had a wife and they had kids, because I don't know, there's some men who just are born to be polygamous, and I thank God that I didn't meet a person like that, because for me, I can't do polygamy. I just can't. Like, I can't. So I do remember, or I've seen, you guys have seen, like, you've gone for a burial, and then it's the wife is there, and there's all that mourning, and then another woman shows up, and she has kids that look like your kids, and then you're like, oh my gosh, these ones look like my kids. So you know that that man was going somewhere, but they kept it a secret. And at the same time, you find that when the other lady comes in, she wants her own share, because she feels entitled that she should get something, a piece of that man who has passed away or whatever. That stuff happens a lot. So yes, the law allows people in Kenya, men, to marry many wives. Fine, well and good. But what are these polygamous families? What are they sitting down and talking about? Because I don't know. You know, I try to think about it, because, you know, there is always family meetings. If you're married, there is always conversation, communication that goes on between a man and wife about their life and all that, especially if you're committed to each other. You'll have those conversations. So you're like, at those conversations, like you're discussing with this wife this today, and then you go to the next wife, you discuss this other thing? Or do you normally, as a man, know that these are my two people, and think of a worst case scenario? Because when you think about the worst case scenario that can happen, then that is how you're able to act on something. When you think about the worst case scenario, what can happen if I am in my absence? Do I want my other children that I have to be disinherited? Do I want my other children or my other wife who I had stood with me or whatever, you know, do I want them to be kicked out? Or do I want my family members to end up in court fighting over property? That's what every man should be asking himself before you go into a polygamous marriage. And then the women, like, know you are first of all, be independent, because independence is really good. And I'm not saying that the people who get married as second wives or first wives or whatever, or the men that they are not independent. I know they are. But when we are bringing up our kids, what are we teaching our girls? Because myself, I have 3 daughters, and I would like them to be independent even before they attach themselves to any person. Their independence. Are you giving them that independence, so that and telling them that they always have to be the best? They cannot come second to anybody, because that's what I tell my daughters. I'm like, you cannot be second to anybody. If someone wants to love you, then it's only you, and that's it, period. You know, you have to state your boundaries and bring up your children knowing that they can only be the best. They cannot be second best. That's how I see it. Some people might not disagree with me, but it always comes from down there, from the upbringing. Because if I do not want to be second to a person, then there is no way that I am going to teach my daughter that it's okay for her to go and have an affair with a married man, or to have an affair with someone who is committed somewhere else. I'm not going to encourage that. It can happen. You know, when kids grow up and they are adults, sometimes there's little that you can do to control their lives, because they have their own mind. They're growing up. They're trying to search themselves. But you look at you bring up your girls, letting them know that they cannot be second best to anybody, because that's how it can work. Our girls, when they go to college, you know, there's this thing that I normally see. By the time I was living in Kenya, there was no slay queen. Is it slay queen? Yeah. Someone was given someone was asked who is a slay queen, and they said that it's a girl who wants to get the good things and they do not want to work, which is very true, very, very, very true. And they're getting these things from these men. These men are married and all that. And we've also seen some tragedy happening, whereby it's a girl, she's been involved with this man who is older, and then maybe she decides to get pregnant, or maybe an accident happens, and those people, they have, some of them have even ended up dead. It costs your life because of a man. You see what I mean? And you can see all that entanglement. So what are we teaching our girls? Because if my daughter went to college, then I would want to know what is she doing? Is she concentrating on her school, or is she waiting until it's in the evening and then she can go and meet those men who are going to give her money? Why don't I have something to show my daughters that they don't have to be second best to anybody? Because that would help. I know coming from the central community in Kenya, that polygamy was there, and it's not going to stop. But there is something that you instill on your kids, and you know, when you bring up your kids is how they grow up, and they cannot be second best to anybody. That can help very, very well. It can help when you bring them up like that. But if you bring them up and maybe you send someone to college, or maybe you they don't have a job, but they're living the best life. They have a car, they have a nice house, they dress well, and you don't question, because you always have to question. I do remember there were these musicians who used to sing, and some of them have passed away. I do remember there was this lady who used to sing about life issues, about that little girl. I think that one is still living. That guy is still living. I'm not sure. And he was saying, he was singing this song, and he was saying that this little girl is taking her tomatoes because they are ripe and they're good, and going to sell them so that they can destroy the business or the market for the other lady. He was going on like that. And these songs, when you listen to some of them, they have a meaning, and those people, they have researched and seen what's going on. There's darkness there. There's a bridge there. There's a big bridge there. They have seen that they had seen what's going on in the society, and that's why they were singing those songs. Because for me, I really do not support polygamy in whatever circumstance. I don't. And we are living in an era whereby we have so many diseases going on, and to change the people's perspective is hard, because there was another comment that I saw. They were commenting on a certain post that had been posted by a person with his 2 wives, and they said that the other wife is feeling jealous or whatever. But then I looked at that comment, I was like, it could be true, because when the man is there, there is so much that that can be hidden and that cannot be talked about, especially coming from the central province, and knowing that there is a little bit of that inferiority complex that women have, that they cannot speak up their mind, or they cannot say like this is wrong, and then, or they say that I'd rather know where my husband is, or who he is sleeping with, instead of not knowing. I think that's, for me, that's crap. You know what I mean? Like, because what I know is that if I am with a certain person, and that person is looking somewhere else, and I'd rather move on and leave that person. But that moving on and that being independent, where is it going to come from if that girl was not brought up with knowing, even by her parents, that she cannot be second best to anybody, or she was not shown the worth of working hard, because you have to work hard in whatever that you do. So let's assume like you're living this life whereby you have like 2 house girls, and sometimes, you know, I look at US, I'm like, I think it's good to live in the US, because it's hard to afford a house girl. So if you have your kids, they have to work on their rooms, sometimes they have to do their laundry, and you don't have like to do everything for them. But I've seen whereby this person, they can afford to hire a house girl, and you find that even the girls who are being brought up in that home, or the boys who are being brought up in that home, they cannot do nothing for themselves. They cannot even pick up a plate from the table and take it to the sink. They can't. They can't even wipe the table. They can't even do nothing. They can't wash their clothes to be clean. Why? Because they are relying on the house girl. You know, when you're bringing up children, and this is how I see it, I see when you're bringing up your kids, you have to differentiate and show them that that is your life that they are living. It is not their life. That is your life that you have made for yourself, that they are living, and they are supposed to work very hard and have a life like that, or a better one. That's how you're supposed to teach your children. But if you teach them that it's the house girl who does everything, then when they get a job, they're not going to be able even to be diligent in whatever that they're doing, because they are used to be helped in everything. And that's why you find that a girl would rather marry a person who is older or a person who has more money instead of going for a young person who they can start life together. You know, that's becoming very difficult and very complex nowadays. That is not how we are bringing up our kids. I do remember when I was young, I think I started doing manual jobs when I had just, no, even before I went to high school, I was doing manual jobs. Yes, I was. So I know the value of work. I know the value of money that I have earned, and that sets a difference. It does set a difference, because of course it doesn't mean that because you had a hard upbringing then you are going to be successful, but there are some things in life that you cannot be taught. Even if that you have to tell your children, do this and be on top of it and put your foot down and tell them, this is what I want and this is how it should go. Say either my way or the highway. You know what I mean? Even sometimes you have to give them a chance to view or to tell you what they feel, but there's some parts as a parent that you're supposed to put your foot down. If my daughter came home with something that I didn't buy or her dad did not buy, I will question that and I will be like, take it back to where you found it. If maybe they don't want to clean up their room, I have to stand up and tell them it has to be done now and it's a must to clean up, because I want that person to be responsible. You understand what I mean? So how are we? Because it all comes from, you know, the tree, the little tree, the way you are watering it, the way you are putting those strings so that it can be straight. That's how it starts. So that people do not start making it normal, normalcy, or making it the normal business of the day, whereby like people have gone even to an extent of saying, as long as I know that my man is with the second wife, then it's okay. No, it's okay. It's not okay. I don't think it is. It's not okay, because that's being it's hypocritical in a way, because you find that you always ask yourself, even if you're in a relationship where it's two of you and you have one man, you always need to ask yourself, what will happen? What would happen? What would the other person do if the husband is not here? Because what the glue that sticks you together is the man. So when that man is gone, how is your co-wife gonna react? And those are some of the dynamics that someone should think about before you enter into in that relationship. I used to watch before. I don't watch a lot of TV nowadays or movies or whatever, but I do remember I used to watch this program whereby there was this man and he was having so many wives. I think he had 5 wives at that moment, and he wanted to take another wife. So what happened is that the new wife was supposed to come, and they meet with the other wives and they have a good time, and then they would give her time to decide. And that man is wealthy. It's a series that I normally watch, and but I haven't watched it in a while, in forever. But I do remember that specific part because it really caught me. Because so this girl, she wasn't a girl necessarily, but she was younger. Here in the US, people stay even up to 30s, 40s without getting married. It's not a big deal. You get married when you want to. It's not a big deal. Nobody is gonna ask you, oh, when are you gonna bring kids, or who is your boyfriend or whatever, or when are you gonna bring the person who is gonna marry you? No, it doesn't happen like that here. Everybody minds their business. So I do remember in that initiation time, whereby this new wife was being brought to be introduced to these 5 wives, and then they treated her really nicely, and the man was there. He was eager to get married and all that stuff. And then they had to wait for an answer, because it's a reality show. They had to wait for an answer. I do remember that woman saying no. She said no. She can't get married and get into that into that family because she doesn't know where she's gonna fit. And that's how every woman who is thinking, oh, I'm gonna get married as a second wife, or I'm gonna be the side chick, that's what you should be thinking about. Like, where do you fit in the math? Where do you fit in the crossword puzzle? Where do you fit? Where will you fit when in the absence of your husband? That's what you should be asking yourself before you get into that. And not normalize anything like polygamy, because it's wrong. We are living in a world of HIV and AIDS. We are living in a world where there's a lot of bad diseases that people can get. So it's debatable, because people would say, oh, it's because you live in the US, it's because, no, some things have to be real. And that's why you're finding even the ball on the other side is changing, whereby you're finding these older women, they're getting the younger boys. Like, I don't know, sometimes I look at things, I'm like, oh my gosh. There was this person who was doing a TikTok, and I thought that he was funny, but I didn't think that it was amusing, because I was like, what the heck? Because she said, so she was in a tower or something, and then she was like, she was giving this story that she went into a room, and then she went with her Benten or something, and then when they were getting out, the man was they met the man, and the man had his side chick. So at the end of the TikTok, she was saying that now she's waiting for the man, so that now, because now they are equal, so that they can talk about it. I was like, what? Like, why are people making those things normal? Those things are not normal. I don't want my son to be married to, or to have an affair with a person who is older than me. No. Maybe 50 years older than me, or like 60 years older than me. No. Those retired women who have, maybe they are having, their kids are older, they're maybe 40 years old or whatever, and those are the ones that those little young men are going for, simply because they have money, or maybe they have, they are at a good position in life, and not encouraging these little boys or these young men that they can work hard and they can start their own families, That reminds me of another story. Oh my gosh, I like to, I just like to look at things and, learn from them. Because there was this other one, that this guy got married to this old lady. Well, that one, if that one, the internet was, the internet was the way it is right now, that one would be trending, like, And I do remember the guy saying that the his mom did not attend the wedding, but it was a good wedding. And then they stayed for a while, and then after staying for so many years, however years they started, and that person was very healthy, then the lady passed away, and then now it was the guy who was left. And by the time oh my god, the time that they were going, that she was released or anything, that guy did not inherit much from that lady, because the kids for that lady were there in charge of everything. So that means that initially they did not approve of that relationship. They didn't. Because in Africa, people marry for wealth and people marry for money. Now I find that there's some clauses here in the US whereby you can get married to someone and maybe not inherit what they have. You can be married to a very wealthy person and maybe not inherit anything. Because they are, people, like, they read a lot and they know, they know what to do to protect what they have. That means that you cannot be, they don't want it to be a marriage of interest. They want it to be a marriage of love, whereby you can love that person whether they have nothing or whether they have something. You see what I mean? And it's doable, what we teach our kids. Because I do remember when I finished class 8, there were some kids who did not go to high school. But there's this one boy who really stood out. He came from a very poor background. We were poor, but those people were poorer. They were more poorer. So so that boy was given a little piece of land by his parents, and he was told to be that's what he got after finishing school, because the parents were not able to pay school fees for him, and that was the end of his school. And I do remember, so as we went to high school and we were doing good and everything, so I do remember when we would come from holidays, the piece of land that that boy was given, he would it was always with you know the kales, the sukuma wiki. I hope you understand the greens that we use, you know, the greens, the normal greens. So the seedlings that are planted in a bed, in a seed bed. So he would have so many, in that little piece of land that he was given by his parents, he would have so many of those like seedling beds, and then he would grow them. And he knew the season. I don't know, for some reason, because he was growing them with seasons. And then he would sell them. So he would time, when it's the rainy season that's coming on, he would have some seedlings ready for the crop for that season. So by the time I was finishing high school, and you see, he started with nothing. He didn't even have a good education. By the time I finished high school, that guy had built his own house, and he was having some cows in his little area that he was given by his parents, and he was married, and he had one child, and he continued doing that, and he made a livelihood for himself, whereby later, like 5 years later, after I had finished high school and everything, he could be counted as someone, because he had his own stuff, he had his own little livestock, and he had everything. So that's an example that I am giving of someone starting from scratch. So and I always wonder, what happened to those parents who had instilled that discipline and that diligence to their kids, that even if you didn't have much, you knew how to start from scratch? Are we teaching our kids that, or are we teaching ourselves that everything comes easy? Because nothing comes easy. Even when people come here in the US, they have a DV lottery or they have a whatever. When they come to the ground, it doesn't start easy, guys. It's hard. It's hard before you become independent, before you have your own car, before you start having your own house. You get it real. Like real, you know, it's real. Like you really have to work very hard. So how are we failing our children? You know, thinking about it, you're like, where is it coming from that even the young girls, they don't want to work, the young boys, they don't want to work? And you know, I can be a good example. I have my YouTube channel that I talk about. How many messages do you think I receive from boys who are even younger than my son? And I'm like, oh my God, what the heck? Like, you know, I just look at them, I'm like, what's wrong? Like, why? You know, why? What are they looking for? Like, why can't you start from zero? I've watched someone, and I've given this story one time. This one was a guy who started with selling boiled eggs. He would go to his little room, apartment, he would boil his eggs, and then he would go to another lady who used to have a grocery, whatever, stand. He would get some few tomatoes, and he would have salt in a little container, and then he would get what else? I think the greens, they're called cilantro here. They're called dania. So you'd get those ones, he would cut into little pieces, and a little bit of onions, and he would go and sell. So he would pass where I was. I even made it a habit to be buying his eggs all the time, because he would pass by there at where I had my business. So he'd pass there every day, and I would like to buy for him. And then eventually, after doing that business for a little bit, then he made money. He kept a big shop, and he got married, and he was able to support his family. What happened to those people, to those young men who would do that? That's what I ask myself. Because when you see a young man attaching himself to this old lady because they want money, they want to drive a good car, or they want to have it easy in life, then you wonder, like, what happened to those morals? So I was just I just thought that I would talk about that because it really bothers me, and I'm like, it's a high time that we started teaching our children not to be second best to anybody. No, they can be. And sometimes you wonder why someone's life did not turn out the way it would have turned out. Some people say that they'd rather cry in a limousine instead of crying in a bicycle. But what you should know is that when you're going into that home, when you're getting into that relationship, there are some people who did not sleep because they wanted to make it. There were some people who worked 110% more harder, so that their life could be where it is at that moment. So that's what you should think about, and that's what you're seeing. It's not good, it's not fair for someone, especially if someone has decided that they are gonna marry the second wife and if they have paid the dues, the dues that are paid, the dowry and all that stuff. Sometimes if you deny them stuff, things happen. The African culture is a little bit complex, so things happen. And when things happen, you find that something bad, a bad omen, because we are not going to leave our culture behind there. So if it happens, it happens, and you have to deal with the consequences. But at the end of the day, if we taught our kids like to be more responsible and not to want what is good and that is not theirs, and not to have it the easy way, they always have to work hard. And that's why you're finding even the people who people are entrusting with. Maybe you are like, I'm gonna elect this politician because he's gonna help, or he's gonna do 1, 2, 3. Then they end up just working for their families, or bringing their family members in the office to work, of which they are not supposed to do that. Or maybe they don't even end up helping the community that stood by them, because there's something that's lacking. That discipline is gone, and I don't know what changed, but I know that social media has changed a lot of things, and it's good that we learn. I watch some of these things and I'm like, oh wow, the world is changing. So I just thought that I would talk about this, and maybe I would talk to someone about it. Someone might listen, someone might not listen, but that's my opinion on polygamy. I really feel that before you get into polygamy, you need to get it together. You really need to get it together and know that you have all your spots covered. All the shelves are covered, so that in case you're absent, or in case something happens, then you do not leave wrangles in your family, or you do not leave hatred in your family. So that's all for now. I'll see you in another video. Thank you, and God bless you.